So you want to heal, but you have no idea where to start. Well, in today's video, I'm going to break down 3 of the easiest areas for you to understand one by one so that you can change the way that you think and feel about yourself and start creating the life that you want right now. Let's get started. Don't get me wrong, healing is really difficult. A lot of people refuse to do it. A lot of people don't know how to do it. A lot of people don't have the ability to go to therapy or have sources that they can actually get to where someone can break it down for them. So that's what this video is about today. We're going to talk about 3 main areas that you can actually look into internally, start to process a little bit of what's going on inside of you, and then actually start to challenge all of the belief systems that you have. The first area we're going to begin with today is called challenging negative self-talk. And this is really difficult for a lot of people. So you really have to think about your mind, think about what your thoughts are that are moving through your head. Now, if you're somebody who doesn't have that internal dialogue, this is going to look a little bit different for you. But if you have an internal dialogue that is constantly telling you negative beliefs, so anything that sounds like, I'm not good enough, I can't achieve this, I'm never going to finish this, I can't get this done, I'm never going to be the person that I want to be, I'm never going to look the way I want to look. If you have miniature thoughts inside of those thoughts of like your main belief is, I'm never going to look the way I want to look, and during the day you're like, oh, I look horrible in this sweater, my jeans make me look fat, I look so fat in the mirror today. Any of those thoughts that you are catching running through your mind, you want to stop and write those down one by one. And I promise you, in the beginning, there's probably going to be a lot of them if you have a lot of negative belief systems that are ingrained in your subconscious. So one of the things that I like to offer people is to keep a small pad of paper and a pen with you. Because if you're somebody who has more of a neurodivergent brain or an ADHD type brain, then you're going to have these thoughts popping in randomly all day long. And you need to start catching them as soon as they're happening. So I say keep a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen with you so that you can write them down every time they're happening. And you may be shocked to find out how many times throughout the day these thoughts are actually popping into your head. But we need a baseline to start with before you can move forward. If you're not quite sure how many times you're thinking these negative thoughts about yourself, then you're not going to know where to start shifting them. So the second place you're going to go from there is practicing self-compassion. And you're going to do this just like you would give compassion to one of your best friends or a family member, a loved one, a child, someone that you're already empathic with. You're going to share the compassion that you would share with them when they make a mistake or they fall down physically or make a mental fall down. But you're going to take the compassion that you would share with them and the advice that you would give them to lift them up, and you're going to turn that inward on yourself. And this seems very counterintuitive for people who have a lot of trauma, and also for people who were kind of brought up with a self-talk of, get over it, you don't need to deal with that, just ignore it. It's really the opposite of what's been ingrained in us. And especially if we're empathic by nature, we can push it out to others, but it's really hard to look at ourselves. We tend to try to get motivated by shaming ourselves instead of lifting ourselves up. And that's what you want to do internally. You want to shift that dialogue inside your head, and you want to give yourself compassion, and you want to give yourself grace. Now, what you're learning to understand here is that you're a human. You are a human being, a human. You have human qualities, which means that you're going to make mistakes. It means that you are not perfect. It means that you make the same mistakes that everyone else around us does. And you have to learn to give compassion internally for all of those failures, for all of those mistakes, and for all of the feelings that you have had that maybe over time you've kind of pushed down. The feelings that you didn't honor, the feelings that were caused by a trauma that you kind of held densely inside of your body. The body keeps score, right? It actually holds that energy for us. So all of those times that you ignored it or pushed it down or pushed it to the side. You want to be able to find those things that are connected with the belief system that you have. And the belief system that you have is dictated by those thoughts that are popping into your head on a daily basis. So we took step 1, and now we're trying to connect it to step 2, which is to add compassion into the areas where you are talking bad about yourself or talking down to yourself. The most important thing that giving yourself grace does is it allows you to be human. It allows you to see yourself as fallible. And it teaches you to steer away from harsh criticism or from judgment. When you really judge in a harsh way, if you have that voice that's judging others externally, then guaranteed it judges yourself the same way as well. So starting to shift from judgment to compassion and soothing yourself after you figure out what the issue is to begin with. So if your first thought was, I look horrible today, I look disgusting, or I look fat, and I'm just talking about it from a standard of beauty. Like if you've set a beauty standard for yourself that you've never been able to hit, so your internal self-dialogue is talking about your physical body. Self-compassion looks like my first step is catching the thought and then applying self-compassion just as you would a friend. Like, no, you don't look horrible today. It's just the way that you feel about it, but you don't have to feel that way. It's just a thought. It's a thought that pops into your head. And it's okay that I used to talk to myself that way, but I'm not going to speak to myself internally anymore because I deserve love. I deserve to be talked to in a kind way. That's compassion, just like you would say to a friend. You deserve love. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter who you are. You deserve love no matter what. You turn that compassion inward. And it may feel counterintuitive at first, but you're rewiring your brain, your neural pathways by doing that. So it takes a little bit of time to starve that old pathway off and create the new pathway. But once you keep doing it over and over again, it will solidify. It'll stay there. It'll become natural. It'll feel natural. What you're trying to do when you're working with trauma triggers is you're trying to extract the denseness of the trauma, which is going to come along with emotion, and it's going to come along with a lot of emotions like anger, sadness, frustration. So part of this is going to be processing those emotions that come up. But as you process the emotion and you allow yourself to feel it and you allow yourself to remember the times that you didn't choose to remember before because you ignored them or pushed them down, you create space inside your body and mind. And what that does is create space for growth and expansion. So it's kind of almost like having one of those sand timers that you turn upside down. As you move the denseness from one side to the other, you can create an area that's open and waiting for something to be filled into there. And what we're going to fill that with eventually is self-love. So those are the first 2 steps to get you there. Now, the third step that you can start taking right now is forgiveness. It's forgiving yourself. So not only are you understanding what's triggering you, are you understanding the thoughts that you're having in your head that correlate to a negative belief system, and then you're showing compassion, which is loving yourself and beginning to move in that direction. You also can't forget to forgive yourself for all the things that maybe didn't go the way that you wanted them to. Again, you're a human. You're going to make mistakes like every other person. You are learning on this journey just like the rest of us are. So it's natural and normal for you to also make those same mistakes that the rest of us make. Forgiving yourself for making those mistakes is incredibly important, because if you can't let it go, if it's a thought that keeps you up at night, that keeps popping into your head, and you're just so attached to it because you think I should have, could have, would have, but the situation is over and you are now only living in the present moment, you're then holding on to an emotion that's outside of you. You're not living in the now moment. You're living inside that old emotion. So you want to forgive all the things that you said that you didn't like that you said. You want to forgive the things that you did. because that was a different version of you then. And as you start unpacking your healing, as you start shifting your self-belief and changing your self-concept, you let those old versions of yourself go. And in order to let that version of yourself go, you have to forgive the fact that you did what you did. And the way that I like to do this is I did the best that I could in the stage that I was in with the information and knowledge that I had. I'm no longer like that. I understand now. I've grown because I've taken in information, I've assimilated, I've learned, I've changed. I'm not that person anymore, which is also how you shift timelines. I'm a different person now than I was when that thing happened. I'm not in that timeline anymore with those people. I am who I am now because I've grown and expanded, so I've moved and changed my frequency into a different space. So I have to forgive that version of who I was because they didn't know any better. So forgiveness is a big step inside of shifting your own self-beliefs so that you can let it go and not think about it anymore. You don't want those old beliefs popping up. And the more they pop up, the more you know they're connected still to your subconscious. You want them gone, just like you think of, anything else that happened in a daily basis, like a normal situation, like you watched your kids playing on the floor and they got in an argument and you settled it and you walked away and you never think about it again. That's the same way you want to feel about mistakes and things that you have done and made, and the way that you feel about your own self. You need to heal that part of you so that you're starting with a blank, neutral space so that you can build a new belief system on top of it, because we experience our reality through our perception, and we create our reality through our belief system, which is governed by our emotions and thoughts. So this is really the baseline for changing your life, is digging into that trauma. And a lot of people don't have to do it. A lot of people can see it, become self-aware of it in the moment, shift and change. Nope, I'm never going to think that again. I'm now going to think the new thing. They move on. They're good to go. But if you're like me and you have a logical brain and you need to figure out why you are the way you are so you can break it down like a puzzle piece to then rebuild on top of it the way you want it to look to create your reality, then this is the starting point for you to do that, to really functionally shift that trauma and let it go for the rest of your life. So, very quick recap for today. You're going to challenge negative self-talk. You have to figure out how many times a day you actually talk to yourself negatively. That's a huge part of it. The next thing you're going to do is add self-compassion in, just like you would to another person in those situations where you're thinking those things. You're going to try to shift that thought from a incompassionate or uncompassionate thought to a compassionate one. And you're going to do that little by little if you need to do it over time. And then lastly, you're going to forgive yourself for all the times that things didn't go the way that you wanted them to go, for the older versions of yourself. Those are the first 3 steps that you can start taking today to shift your life, to create the life that you want. Because the only way you can create the life that you want is to basically choose your belief system. So we have to unpack all the belief systems that don't correspond or correlate to the life that you can see yourself having eventually. So if you like what you saw in today's video, please do all of the things. Like the video, subscribe for more, share this with somebody who you believe might also need some help in this area, because we all deserve to feel self-love. And all of the links are going to be in the description below. If this really rings true to you and you're like, this is exactly the space that I need to be, you find you are very similar to the way that I have my thought process set up, you can go to my website and you can subscribe to email. There's a pop-up that'll come up and it will give you a free download of Self-Discovery 101. It's a PDF you can get for free today. Sign up, get the whole PDF, let it walk through you and break down even more of this information, and then you can start looking into anything else that you might think would suit you. So thank you guys for watching today, and take care of you.